So let's talk a little bit about your recruitment. I'm curious when you committed, when you kind of knew where you wanted to go, and I'm always kind of curious about, what went into the decision. Who was second? Like, what were you wrestling with?
Second was easily Michigan. I mean, right? So I took trips, Harvard, Georgia, Michigan, Arizona, and I canceled Auburn last minute. Auburn didn't really fit the bill. It was just a different tone. I'd met David Marshall a lot. We had a good communication and relationship, but the program didn't seem to fit. And by the time I'd gone on the 4 trips, it was pretty clear. Obviously, all the schools had great butterfly and IM programs. They're all storied programs. And I was lucky enough to get recruited pretty much everywhere across the country. It was pick of the litter. But I was trying to find a program that I think would fit both academically, athletically at the same time. It's funny because I remember sitting down at U of M, and the most interesting part about, I'll do it in reverse. I can't remember exactly when Alex Vanderkay got married, but it was far after my recruitment. I mean, 2010, 2012, something like that. So 10, 12 years after, I'm sitting at a table with Cooper, John Urbanchek, and some other oldie guys. And it's the first time John and I had sat down really after my career had ended and talked. And somehow the conversation of my recruitment got brought up. And he goes, I remember that question you asked me. And I'm thinking, John's had some of the best swimmers in the country, in the world, come through his doors. Okay, a lot of them swam there. A lot of them set records, Peter being one of them, just down at the head table, and a lot of other guys. And I'm like, no, you don't. He's like, you asked me if I was going to stay all 4 years. And I go, you remember your answer? And he said, yeah, I told you no. Well, he didn't, I shouldn't say that. He didn't say he wasn't. I asked him, I go, can you guarantee that you're going to stay all 4 years? Because for me, I wanted to go to a program knowing that the guy I'm signing up to swim for is going to be the guy that I'm going to continue to swim for, because there was obviously rumors that John was going to go back to California. It always circulated, and if someone grew up in Michigan, you heard them. His wife's from California, they want to go back to California, stuff like that. And so my big concern was that I don't know who's going to take over the reins. And it was most likely going to be Namesake. We all know that. Clearly a great history, clearly the best pedigree, but I was signing up to someone for John if I wanted to go there. And when he told me no, it was hard to imagine swimming for someone else at U of M. And ironically, if I asked Jack the same question in Georgia, and Jack's like, I'm not going anywhere. And true to Jack's word, but also different than John's, they both clearly stayed there well past my tenure. But at the same time, too, I will say that I had the connection at Georgia, not just with the coaching staff, but with the team. I felt really a part of that team. And it was just different, too, because when I went to my recruiter trip at U of M, I ended up taking my host to a party, and there was like my high school buddies were walking down the driveway, and I'm like, what are you doing here? And they're like, we're at a party. And I'm like, this is a little weird, So it was almost too small for me, and I thought making a break and going somewhere completely different would have been a nice change of pace. Harvard obviously excelled more in the educational department. Arizona, maybe a little far for me. I mean, all great programs in their own right, but Georgia it just felt right. And, I ended up going there. Kyle Salyard's my eventual roommate freshman year. He sat out a year, freshman year, to train for the Olympics. And so then with the guys that we brought in, Robert Margalis, Kyle Salyards, me, Andrew Mahaney, and a couple other guys, I mean, we had a really deep freshman class. So it was really exciting to be part of that.
I'm sure. If I asked you to kind of look back at your career, and I asked you what was kind of your most significant roadblock or your most important setback, would anything come to mind?
I think it was junior year of college. Junior year, well, not finaling the 2000 trials was definitely one of them, right? But the only easy part of getting over that was quickly shifting focus to NCAAs and the newness of college swimming for me. So that was a nice distraction, but at the same time, it was, obviously 2000 trials was very difficult because, again, I think we were primed and ready to go. We meaning Jeff and I, thought like I was right there. Again, that pacing, that one evening, probably the evening after 200 IM, doing the 409 pacing of just hitting numbers and going super easy was like, okay, we know we hit the taper right on the money. It just didn't come through. But junior year of college was really tough. I had a hard time. I had some success freshman year, final SECs, made my A cut, went to NCAAs, and made NCAAs every year. So it was good, but it was junior year. There was kind of that lull where, I didn't necessarily start winning everything like I had been. Junior year was tough. I was actually close to almost quitting altogether. I sat down with Carol Capitani. She's now the head coach at Texas for the women, and we had a long talk, and I was like, I don't know if I like to do this anymore. I mean, we all know swimming's arguably the hardest sport when it comes to time management and how much you have to put in for incremental gains, right? So a lot of times by college, you're not like, if you're at a top 10 program, you're probably not the person that's looking to shave tons of time unless you're Michael Phelps type escalation, stuff like that. But you're already probably close to your peak, in terms of level of fitness and everything else. So it's like you're trying to find where you can make those gains. And it was tough. And obviously SECs is one of the deepest conferences in the country. So it was senior year. I remember coming back and talking to Harvey Humphreys. And instead of working with Jack's group and main group, I actually went over and started training with distance group. And we did a program that they called modified distance. So it wasn't Robert Margalis 10, 11,000 meters. It was, more appropriate, like 7,000 to 8,000 meters, which is where I usually train, but just a little bit different than the Jack's program, right? And that actually helped me, along with a new weight regimen and a new strength training coach. I came back more focused, more dedicated, and really excited to swim again. But I think that was probably the hardest time because I was very fortunate to fall into a sport that I had a lot of success throughout the years. So I don't feel like I had a lot of letdowns or roadblocks. Maybe I didn't win this or didn't swim as well as I wanted to at nationals, but it wasn't never so much that I wasn't always progressing closer towards the end goal. But it was kind of through college where I kind of lulled out a little bit and didn't have the same level of success. And I mean, it's the fastest meet in the world to sit there at a men's D1 NCAAs to watch the people just rip out sometimes. And I mean, it's mind boggling now. I can't even understand the times that people swim now. It's really something to be amazed at.
In the morning pressure, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yep.
like it's
Yep.
unlike anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is.
I was just looking at the trials results, trying to, put all these stories in perspective. Do you remember what you had been going into trials?
Honestly, I don't. I
Yeah.
don't. I remember
You were 203.1 at trials, and I was just curious kind of how that compared to what you had been.
I remember going to a meet in Cleveland, and we were trying to get under 2 minutes. Like that was always the goal, under 2 minutes, because at that point, I mean, obviously everything changed once 2004, 2006 hit. And I mean, in 2000 trials, if you got under 2 minutes, you were in the conversation. Tom was clearly going to go lower. He was, but if you could get under 2, you could be right there. And if you drop a second or two, you could have done it. I want to say 201 maybe. I don't think I ever got to 2 flat. I think 201 might have been the best. And I'm feel like it might have been Long Island Grand Prix. It might have been 202 actually. So I remember it was me, Andrew Mahaney, and Michael racing. Maybe that was later. Maybe that might have been later. It might not have been 99 Grand Prix in Long Island. I'm not sure. Yeah, that's the only thing that with this point now.
You've been faster. That's by the bottom line. You'd been faster.
I think I'd been faster. I'm almost certain I'd been faster because I know that we were really looking to go under 2.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I have to tell you that, just in this conversation, like one of the things that's really stood out to me in all these conversations, one is, I'm not like you. You know, like I was a swimmer, but I'm not built like you guys in terms of how fast you were, your national exposure, the whole thing. And so I understand the sport, but I'm sitting on the outside, you know, getting the opportunity to meet these guys. And in some ways you can kind of draw a little bit of a personality profile, you know, of guys as you get to sit and listen. And I spoke with Morgan Priestley last night. And one of the things that we talked about was that Morgan is just remarkably well adjusted coming out of swimming in comparison to so many others that I've spoken to. And just the reality, and I told Morgan this last night, I mean, this project has given me the opportunity to sit down and talk with men that are now 65 years old who are not okay with how it ended. And they won't be. You know, like the reality is some of these guys have been extremely disappointed in themselves for 45 years. And they just kind of are dealing, you know, have dealt with that disappointment. So in some ways, I kind of came away from the discussions wondering if this project was all that good for them, because it stirred up some of that, and, you know, but I say all that to kind of juxtapose you. And I think you're much more in Morgan's bowl over here than that one over there. That you seem to have great perspective, and maybe had great perspective even at that time about where swimming fit in your life and in what it meant.
A little bit of both. I'd say I'm in both camps partially, right? So clearly I'm not happy with how things ended. It was so going back to senior year at Georgia, again, rededicated myself. I was bigger, stronger, faster than I'd ever been. I was in the best shape of my life. I got second at SECs in 200 fly to the defending champion, Stefan Gurgel. So, I mean, I felt like I was in a great spot to win the 200 fly. Friday comes, 200 IMs, fine, whatever. At that point, IMs are good, but 200 IMs never been my strongest one at that point because 400 IMs better. I got food poisoning that Friday night. I woke up at 3 a.m. puking and was like dying, and went to the coaches the next morning. I'm like, something is clearly wrong. So they were like, okay, we're scrapping Saturday. I didn't get to swim the 400 IM at all. Went to the hospital, tried to get something just to settle my stomach. And then the next Sunday morning or Saturday morning, whatever it is, and Harvey's like, okay, we got to get up early. We got to get you back in the water. We got to get you going again, regardless of how you feel. And I remember just trying to plow through it, and like nothing felt right. My whole body was just shot. There was not responding whatsoever. So it could not have ended in a worse way, right? Because I didn't even get the chance to really go out and see what I could have done. Because again, I was ready to go, and I really thought I could have won that race that year. I had the confidence, I had the stamina, the strength, everything. But I think the lull my junior year helped me understand, you know, this isn't going to be everything for me. I know that. And the hard part was, well, everybody who's swimming at that time, especially in my events, knew there's only one slot. Michael had one of them locked down. So you had one chance. So you had to be the next best guy. And you could have been 4 seconds behind the world's best and still been the second best guy in the world. But it would have been good enough. So the reality was, I know how slim the margin would have been, right? And so that's why my senior year in college, I'd already decided not to go to trials. I was going to study abroad. I was going to move on, and we were really content with the decision. I almost changed it when I got food poisoning. I was like, do I have to go to trials now? I'd already signed up to do a study abroad. I was supposed to spend a couple months studying in China and stuff like that.
It can't end like this, right? Like that's what you're thinking.
Was. Yeah. But, you know, the decision had been made. I stuck to it. And again, I have no regrets. It's every now and then, though, I do, when we talk about swimming with whoever else it is or stuff, I still have dreams about it where I'm at practice and I'm not prepared for the meet. I'm not ready, and I don't know how I'm going to swim. And so when I say I'm sometimes still in that ballpark where it does haunt me, it sometimes creeps into my subconscious because, you know, obviously there was unfinished business, but, you know, I always look back in my life and I always say everything happened for a reason, because if one thing would have changed, I might not have ended up here. And my wife's sitting over there, but the same thing is like, if A, B, and C didn't happen, I might not have been right here, right now, with her and stuff like that. I mean, I ended up right where I needed to be. And so that's the good part, is that I have that peace of mind knowing, like, okay, I might not have made the Olympics and I might not have set all the world on fire in swimming, but I ended up right where I needed to be.
That's perspective, right?
Yeah.
If I asked you a really, really broad question here about what the sport of swimming means to you, what it meant to you in your life, what it means to you today, what would you talk about?
You say who I would talk about?
What would you talk about? If I asked you, you know, what does swimming mean to you? What would you say?
Well, I think it's almost a building block for almost everything I've done, right? It gave me a lot of responsibility, time management, discipline, gave me focus, it gave me drive, it gave me success. And I mean, the relationships more than anything throughout that entire career is really what I stem back to, that mean everything. Because the one thing with swimming is that although you're in the lane by yourself, and even if it's a relay, you're still in the pool by yourself. You can't do it without an army, right? I go back to my parents and my sisters getting me to practice, to my teammates getting me through practices, some of my teammates carpooling with me to practice. And those are the things that, you know, will never be replaced. And for that same reason, it's one of the main drives. Like, so my wife and I moved back to the Detroit area 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, but it's because this area holds so much value to me from where I grew up. And, you know, I'm closer to OU and where I swam all the time. And I talk to Peter, he's 15, 20 minutes away. I get to see my parents and stuff like that. But like, it's those connections, and swimming really brought it all together. And obviously the sport in and of itself was tremendous, obviously, you know, from a physical standpoint, but being able to go to a college across the country, not have to pay for it, and to get to meet people, to travel and represent, you know, USA at the national junior team meet. Like, I mean, that meet was one of my highlights for sure. It was just incredible. I think it was my junior year. So there was just so much fondness that I have with swimming.
What are you most proud of everything you accomplished? What are you most proud of?
That's a good question. It's hard to pick one race, one time, because I don't think that, again, with my goal being the Olympics, that I had that consummate win that superseded everything. I would guess maybe my junior team race. It was 400 IM, Barcelona, Spain. We had seen the Olympic pool, you know, the day before. We're at some local pool, whatever. But again, me being, I think it was 5'7" at the time, maybe, really small, standing up next to Marcel Wuda and just going toe-to-toe with him. I didn't beat him, but I got second right behind him. Dan Ketchum got third right behind me. And I got this picture, and I'm this tall. These two guys are this tall, and we have our little trophies there, and the kids are asking for autographs and stuff. And, you know, you put on at that time, we're still Speedos, but I think we had just moved into Fast Skins, maybe. But it has USA right on the little hip and stuff like that. You had a backpack. And so I think I would definitely say probably junior team was the highlight of it, you know, and being able to represent Team USA. And again, some of the relationships I made there were lifelong. And one of the main reasons I went to Georgia with my comfort with Harvey too.
One of my favorite stories that I've heard during this project was Brad Craig, the great breaststroker from Midland, told me a story about the box arriving, his national team box, the first one, and just taking it all out and putting it out in front of him. And just, do you have a similar memory or moment of just kind of like, I'm on the national team?
Mine was, we didn't get a box, but I remember going to training camp at Colorado Springs, and they brought us down to a room, and it's effectively a closet, but it's just USA swimming gear laid out. And it's, okay, grab these, grab this, you can have this or this. And so you just start picking up things. And I mean, I still have the t-shirt. I still have the Speedo. I still have the backpack. I mean, it's 20 years old and maybe a little crusty, but it's never going anywhere. I mean, it's never getting thrown away. I still wear the t-shirt, you know. I mean, so yeah, it's got the most special place in my heart, but I do remember that. You know, and the other one I will say one of the greatest achievements, so it wasn't necessarily specific for me, because when I think it was my junior year, we went back to juniors as a team, but when Ole won it as the men's team. So it was being able to be part of the relays with everybody. And I remember it was the 400 free relay, and I was the anchor, and I came back and we ended up out touching, I forget whoever else was second place. And I think my dad has a video. Someone had a video of it, and no one thought we won. And I'm sitting there excited we won, and everyone's just like, and they look at the scoreboard, and then they're like, oh my God, we won. And so when we won as a team, into, you know, effectively same thing with trying to build up other guys, was you guys lead us out, like you go, and it doesn't matter who scored what points, who won what, and stuff like that, because it was hopeful that all like a meet like that was going to springboard everybody else to better things, you know. But again, being able to collectively as a team to go out and win a junior national was really, really fun.
Just a couple of short ones here to finish up the details. 5'7", about what? What'd you weigh at that time?
That time, I'm not sure. I only remember, so at trials, I was about 5'9", was 146 race weight. I got
race
up
weight,
to
race weight. Now, but what were you at the weigh-in is the question.
Oh, I don't know, because I was just monitoring, because obviously.
Were you like a boxer where you were like 131 the day before, but then at the race you were 146?
No, it was pretty consistent, but it was making sure that as much as we were training, I wasn't losing muscle and getting too skinny, right? Because it was obviously making sure you had that balance of strength to weight ratio. And then I remember by senior year at Georgia, I think it was still 5'9" and never grew anymore. I think it was up to 156, 157. And it was senior year, it was all muscle at that point. It was much stronger with a different training program that year.
I told Matt Parrish that I would love to find a spot in the book to do like a little like pound for pound rating.
Yeah.
And Alec Mole really wants to make sure that Ian is considered for that. But there's a few guys that are clear members of the pound for pound, all pound for pound team, and you're on that team for sure.
I remember it was leading into 2000 trials. That was when the bodysuit started coming out. And that point, it was just knees to tank top. I don't think they had arms and all the way to ankles yet. But I remember trying to get, so Ole was sponsored by Speedo, and trying to get access to try one of the suits on. Well, couldn't do it. Finally got it at Long Island Grand Prix. I put the thing on, and it was like a bag. And we went back to Speedo and told them, and they're like, no, it's not possible. And they're like, why is it not possible? They're like, we took a sample of across what our people that made the A cuts, and this is the smallest they should be. And then Jeff's like, well, clearly he doesn't even fit, right? So they ended up making a men's small suit. I don't want to say for me, but because I went and told them, like, I made the A cut, you know, it wasn't like, you know, I was one of the guys that made the B cuts and I'm just trying to sneak in and just swim. But it was like, okay, we had a real shot here. And they ended up making a men's small chest to knees. I ended up wearing it though, because I didn't have enough time to get accustomed to it, because it just changed the flow, you know, and with a little more rigidity in your back, the fly didn't feel quite as normal for me. Because at that point, they didn't have the suits for you to just take and train in or really get comfortable. We have them available. You can grab one for a race at the Grand Prix meets, but that's it. Well, everybody wants them. And if the smallest one you had was, I think it was a 28, and then by the time I put it on, it was huge. It was like, okay, they miscalculated. So they missed the mark. So I'm definitely on the team for sure in terms of pound for pound, because again, with Speedo's research, they didn't even think someone my size would have been fitting that mold.
That's like your resume tape right there.
Yeah,
They had to make a suit for me.
That one was a little. It was nice to know that I maximized my physical potential.
Yeah.